Here are some teachings on box breathing, also called square breathing, a very simple and very effective practice. I'll give the basics, then I'll go deeper into various aspects of the breath practice, and finally I'll talk a little bit about the application to psychedelic work. So the box breathing is a very simple structure. You set up a rhythm, about 1 per second, and inhale from the very bottom to the top over a count of 4, then retain at the top, hold the breath at the top for a count of 4, then exhale slowly for a count of 4, and then remain with empty lungs, holding the breath on empty for the final count of 4. So you can see why it's called square breathing. 4 up to the top, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold at the bottom with empty lungs for 4. And repeat that. So let me go over the mechanics of basic breath work first, and then we'll practice together. So we exhale very fully, all the way to the bottom, and then the inhale, you feel the belly expanding in all directions like a balloon. It may take some getting used to, but you inhale like a balloon is expanding. This is diaphragmatic breathing. The exhalation is just spilling out, complete surrender, letting go. So really, you can drop the jaw and just let the breath go, let it go, let it go, let it go. So inhaling deeply from the belly, and then exhale and just let the breath sail all the way to the bottom. So with those basic mechanics in place, let's try a few rounds of this box breathing. 4, inhale, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then retain at the bottom for 4. Let's practice with the inhales from the belly, exhales just spilling out. So find a comfortable seat. You can also practice lying down if that feels better. And allow the breath, wherever you are in your cycle, to exhale fully all the way out. We'll begin from empty, set up a count, and inhaling from the belly, 2, 3, 4, hold at the top, 2, 3, 4, release the breath, 2, 3, 4, hold at the bottom, 2, 3, 4, inhale, hold at the top, release, hold at the bottom, inhale, hold, release, hold on empty, inhale, hold at the top, release, hold on empty. And breathe normally. Invitation to close the eyes or close them part way, and just touch in with how it feels to do some conscious box breathing like that. So now let me go deeper into some nuances and variations that can improve motivation, engagement with the practice. Really is about setting up a practice that feels in some way personal, even fun, in order to be something that you can actually return to regularly. The more these practices are performed outside of the psychedelic state or in the course of everyday life, the deeper the benefits are spread through everything. So here's the first thing. This is a very simple stretch. It's 3 motions, and they're synchronized with the inhale and exhale in such a way to open the breathing space and prepare the body for the box breathing practice. So this could be considered a warm-up. So clasp the hands in front of the body and exhale fully. And with the next inhale, deep from the belly, bring the clasp up and slightly stretch the body to the right, to the top of the breath. And then as you exhale, Release the clasp down, release the posture, relax everything all the way to the bottom. Inhale from the belly, clasp comes up. This time you tilt in the other direction, getting that side stretch from the armpit all the way down to the hip, and then releasing the breath, the clasp down to the lap, at the same time allowing the breath to spill all the way out. Keep the clasp. One more, inhaling from the belly. This time reach as high as you can, a slight back bend if that feels good, and then as you exhale, push the clasp and arch the spine, really engaging the abdominal muscles and squeezing the air out. So let's practice that together. And again, this would be performed before you do box breathing or any pranayama or breathwork practice. So clasping the hands in front of the body. Wherever you are in your breathing, exhale fully. And here we go, inhaling from the belly, up and to the right. Exhale as you release. The motion and the breath are synchronized all the way to the bottom. Inhale as you lift the clasp and stretch to the other side. And release the breath and the posture. The clasp comes down at the same time. Breath goes fully out. And one final one, inhaling deeply from the belly. Clasp comes up, slight back bend if that feels good. And then as you exhale, push and squeeze the air all the way. And return to neutral. Relax shoulders, relax jaw. And just bring the awareness to the internal state, how it feels to do 3 conscious breaths synchronized with the motions like that. We're kind of working the spine in these different directions and also actually opening the rib cage and expanding the breathing space. So that will support any breath practice. Let's get deeper into the box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and retain on empty for 4. So the first thing is the inhalation. You inhale from the belly. You can do it either through the nose or the mouth, and that will depend on what kind of aspects you're cultivating for your practice or your psychedelic journey. If you want something higher energy, more about building energy, then you could try through pursed lips like that. If you're trying to induce a more calming, balancing aspect, then through the nose, if that's available. But the most important thing is the belly swells like a balloon, and the most important thing, even more important than that, is the exhale, just completely letting go. It's just completely letting go of the breath. You can drop the jaw like that. So as you inhale from the belly to the top, and then retain, the retention happens with a subtle seal in the back of the throat. And you do not, this is a very important note, allow the body to collapse. So you maintain this structure of openness and expansion at the top of the breath. It goes like this. And then I hold, and by now my rib cage, the breath is so deep that the rib cage has become engaged, but there's no tension in the shoulders, there's no tension in the jaw, but I'm not collapsing the breath of the body as I hold for 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's an advanced note about the exhalation. Sometimes beginning students find it hard to spread that exhalation over the 4 beats. It just the breath is released and it pours out, and then they're waiting for the count to be completed. So the instruction here is to slow the exhalation. And the exhalation can be slowed a number of different ways. You can make a shh sound. You can make a shh sound. You can do what in yoga is called ujjayi breathing and kind of clench the back of the throat to make this oceanic tidal sound as the breath goes all the way out. It's a little bit like whispering as you drop and really relax the jaw and let the breath go out. And that will help you to extend that exhalation for the full 4 counts. And when you retain at the bottom, it is by sealing the throat, if you like, surrendering the breath, that's very important, and not pushing. So you'll notice when we did the clasp, inhale and exhale, pushing out, that was the one time when we're using the abdominal muscles to push the air out. When we're performing the box breathing and resting at the bottom, resting is probably a better word than retaining, at the bottom for 4 counts, it's with complete letting go. There is a seal in the throat is closed to prevent the breath from rushing back in before you intend. But there is no pushing with the abdominal muscles and certainly no tension in the shoulders. Always keep an eye out for tension creeping into shoulders, neck, and jaw, or even face. Sometimes when people are practicing yoga, the yoga teacher will make a joke about the facial expressions because people are doing these postures that are supposed to be deeply relaxing, and yet there's quite an expression on the face. So to recap this slightly deeper dive into the box breathing, the inhale happens from the belly, you reach the top and seal the throat, and at that point the structural integrity of the body is maintained. So there's no collapse in the body when retaining at the top. You retain for the 4, and then on the 4 exhaling beats, you can shh or s or any way of slowing the breath down to extend that exhalation for the 4 counts. And then finally resting at the bottom with a complete aspect of surrender and no pushing from the abdomen. So let's practice a few rounds together, incorporating those additional notes. So wherever you are in your breath, allow the breath to settle at the bottom. Exhale fully. You can be sitting up or lying down, whatever you prefer here. And let's begin. Inhaling from belly. Hold at the top, maintaining the structure of the body. 3, 4, release. Now hold on empty with no tension. Inhaling from belly. Hold at the top, maintaining structure of body. Exhale, slow. Hold on empty, no tension. Here we go. Inhale. Hold at the top. Slow release. Hold on empty. Inhale from belly. Hold at the top. Long release. Hold on empty. And allow the breath to return to normal. And take a few moments, eyes closed if you like, to just feel how it feels to perform the box breathing that way. So here are some creative opportunities, things you can play with in this practice. First of all, this gets asked often, every time I teach this practice. You can change the numbers. The numbers are yours to change, experiment with, explore, and ultimately make your own personal practice. So for example, you could go 4 in, hold for 4, and then 8 out. Some people find it effective to extend the exhalation longer. You could inhale for 4, only hold for 2, exhale for 16, if that feels right, and then hold for 2 at the bottom. You can explore whatever numbers you like. I suggest that you make your choice and don't change it for the duration of your practice session. And then when you come to the practice again, then you can mix it up and change it based on what your experience was. So if you find like, I think I was rushing on the exhalation, maybe you would decide to make it 8 counts instead of 4. Really experiment and explore, make the practice yours. If you feel more connected to a practice where there's a very rigid and specific instruction, then by all means, keep it 4, 4, 4, 4, if that's how you work best. But if you feel, as many of us do, more connected to a practice that you have been allowed and you have the freedom to tweak and adjust and play with, make creative, make yours, then absolutely full permission to pick whatever numbers. It won't be a square anymore if you don't use the same number, but that's fine. So definitely explore and play with that. And here is another thing that you can do generally, a wonderful thing to do in psychedelic work is the sound of the breath. So all of those techniques for elongating the exhalation, shh or s or ha, they all have a sound, but you really attune to the sound, you really listen to it. And you allow yourself to play with the sound and even make it musical. And those kinds of personal touches can really can improve motivation, can improve focus, and as I will discuss with psychedelic work, the additional sense that's employed when you're not only feeling the breath but also hearing it can be very, very useful. So those are two ideas of ways to make the practice your own, make it personal. And finally, here is how to apply the box breathing or any of these variants to your psychedelic work for healing, creative flow, spiritual exploration. Box breathing is a wonderful breath practice to bring into this context. It's usually associated with aspects of confidence, balance, groundedness. So you could even sort of reflect on those aspects. You could try to embody them in your physical posture before you practice. While you're practicing, you could remind yourself. At the end of the practice, you could touch in, and when we were closing the eyes and touching in with the internal state, you could conjure those aspects, confidence, groundedness, balance, and feel the box breathing really bring that to your nervous system. So in psychedelic work, the usefulness of box breathing is often greatly enhanced by attaching the practice to music, to an external rhythmic sound. And many people who journey with psychedelics for any of those purposes, healing, creative flow, spiritual exploration, for people doing psychedelic work, music is often very important, if not absolutely central. So if that's you, and particularly if your music has a steady beat, then it is ideal for attaching to the box breathing practice. You set up that rhythm. If the rhythm is fast, you might want to slow the count. But if the rhythm is about 1 per second, or it can be considered in half time to be 1 per second, then you have the perfect rhythm set up. That's usually the rhythm for box breathing, about 1 per second in the count. So you set up the trancey rhythmic music. And for this kind of practice, you might want to lie down, though sitting up is fine too. And then you entrain the breath, the rhythm is going. And if you are seeking in your psychedelic work a sense of groundedness and balance and confidence, those kinds of aspects, then practice with the box breathing technique as often as you can in the days before your journey, with, additionally, for an extra boost, the piece of music that you have chosen to accompany it with. And this has great utility in psychedelic work. So you set up this time of your day. As I discussed in the previous video, you're conjuring a sense of motivation, of joyful engagement. Rather than a chore, you want this to really be, I'm going to work with my breath, this most sacred and mysterious thing, this primal energy in me. And you set up a piece of music that you really enjoy that has a steady rhythm, and you practice the box breathing to that rhythm with whatever numbers you choose, maybe with some musical exhalation, and then you practice with the music, hearing your breath, feeling your breath, feeling the rhythm, really touching in with those senses as you practice. This can be done the day of your journey. You're feeling a sense of, I could really use some balance right now. Practice your box breathing with the music or without the music. I want to make it clear that the music is not necessary, it's an added boost. But you don't want to get attached to the point where you say, if I don't have that music on hand, I can't practice the box breathing. You could practice the box breathing on the subway or even at work, as long as you're not too dramatic with the sound of the exhalations. So on the day of your journey, While the medicine is building, and you're feeling what they sometimes call body load, you're feeling a sense of maybe quite intense discomfort. This is something that goes along with certain psychedelic experiences. There is nothing more effective for balancing and grounding that energy than this box breathing practice with this music that you love and you have been practicing with. And finally, during your integration process, which is the period, it really begins during the psychedelic experience itself, but after this experience, during the come down, after the experience, and for many, many days, even weeks, months afterwards, you are primed for an enhanced learning, for the ability to make progress and transformation at an accelerated pace. So during that phase, during the long integration phase, anytime you practice this breath practice that you have associated with your psychedelic work, you've associated with the aspects of groundedness and balance, you've entrained to that piece of music that you really like the rhythm of and you like the sound of. And if 2 weeks later you're feeling the blues have descended again and the psychedelic trip, while healing at the time, feels like a distant memory, and you need to bring back that self-support, that sense of groundedness, balance, the sense of you taking initiative in your healing process, then you boot that music up again and you practice the box breathing a few times, even one round in the middle of the day, to bring back those benefits. So as I always say, the more you practice whatever breathwork technique, but the more you practice the box breathing, perhaps with the music as well, paying attention to how it feels, paying attention to how it sounds, and the more you practice in the waking state, the more available the practice will be to you in the depths of your psychedelic journey. But psychedelics are not necessary. These breath practices are ancient techniques for bringing a sense of energetic balance to the body, building energy, balancing energy to make use of for all of your life pursuits. Thank you.